Hello, everyone. My name is John Kruper. Sorry, I forgot my name tag, but you can call me John, John. And this is Introduction to Git. Git is a tool which is used for version control. And you can see from this meme, a typical system for version control when you're writing a paper, which might be that you make some edits, you save it as final.doc, you send it to colleagues, they suggest revisions, they do revisions, you rename the file, and so on, and the file gets renamed multiple times after so many corrections. This can be good enough for when you're maybe writing a paper, but when you're writing software, it's there's much more value in making sure you're doing this in a way that is systematic. It's more convenient when it's automatic. It's much easier to find bugs when you can go through and check how your code has changed with time, maybe find where you introduced the bug. And it's also better for when you're collaborating with others to have a systematic way of keeping track of what changes happened when.
Hey, John.
All right.
Sorry for interrupting you. We cannot see your screen on
Here, let me
online,
share.
folks. Sorry.
No, thank you for interrupting.
Yes, we can see now. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Yeah, feel free to interrupt at any time, ask questions at any time. All right, to start, you can go into curriculum, Kruper Git and GitHub and open this 01-local.md. To open it, you should right click and click open with Markdown preview. If you don't do that, you'll get the actual code used before the Markdown is rendered, which is just harder to read. So open it in the preview mode. And there's a lot of text here. I'm not going to read through all of the text, but you can go through and reference these after the class. This Y version control I already went through. Git is based around repositories. You can think of a repository as basically a folder, usually on your computer, where where some of the files in that folder are being tracked by Git, all of the different changes. What's MD? There's a question, what does .nd mean? That stands for Markdown. It's a system for formatting files. You can see what Markdown looks like here. So a lot of what we've been using are Jupyter notebooks, which mix formatted text with code. We're going to be doing all of the coding in the command line. We're not going to be running Python code. So all of this is written in Markdown files, which is just formatted text. Yeah, you don't need to know Markdown, but you can see, for example, it's things like this where two hashtags, Y version control then shows up as a title in the main text. So it's just a way of formatting text. All right, so GitHub is a system of version control. It's based on repositories, which are folders where things inside the folder are tracked. We're going to be using the command line as much as possible, just because this is how it's commonly used, and it'll make it easier when you're working with remote systems and you'll have a better understanding of what's happening under the hood. There is a GitHub app you can install on your computer and run this through a GUI, but personally, I think it's easier just to learn the command lines. To start, in the setting up Git section, if you should go through these instructions under setup. You can click the setup link. It's also available if you go into this folder on the left and click shared docs, get setup.html. And this is going to walk through how you set up GitHub on your computer or on the cloud here. And I am going to go through all of these steps now, but how many people have already gone through these steps? Raise your hand.
So I'd be confused.
You have to do all of these steps in order to.
These steps are just for being able to use Git on Jupyter. So if you don't follow these steps, Git will not know who you are or anything like that. So it'll get confused. So these are basically configuring Git to work on Jupyter.
All right, perfect. So let's start by, that's great that I'll walk through all of this, and it looks like most people have not set this up already. If you've already set this up, that's great. Just do your own thing for a little bit. So to start, we're going to open a command line. You can open a tab here, and then down here in other, click terminal. And then following the Git instructions, we're going to give it a username and email so that Git knows who you are. After providing it with a username and email, we're going to run these two configuration commands. They set the default branch name to main and the default pool behavior. Both of these things are described further in the tutorial. We might not make it there during the class, so don't worry about it now. But basically with Git, you can maybe have different versions of your repository working at the same time. So you can make changes to one part of the code, switch, make changes to the other part of the code, and this is handling that behavior. So we're going to run these two commands. And then we'll be getting to the SSH key gen portion. So far, show of hands, does anyone want me to slow down? How many people have gotten to this point and is following along? All right, great. How many people want me to slow down? All right, great. So SSH keygen, you might think, okay, I've given it a username. In most places, I'll give it a password, and that's what we're going to use for verification. But to be more secure, we're going to generate an SSH key and then tell GitHub about this public and private key pair. In order to generate this, we're going to run this command. Right here, it says it's generating the private public key pair. This is just the algorithm used to generate it. We'll save it in this file. If you want to save it in a different file, you could type it there. We will not set a passphrase for this because no one else should be able to access this. And there it's generated the key. And it generated the key and put it in this file here. So we're going to use the cat command to read what's in the file. And in the file, you see the beginning open SSH private key. You would normally not want to share this with anyone. But here it is.
Make sure not to say, keep this public key on your GitHub because this will get posted on YouTube later.
Yes, yes. No, I will not give this any real permissions. Normally you would not want to, you normally want to be very careful about where you put this private key. But yeah, copy this entire line and oh,
You need to cap the public.
you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's,
You did.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's-
thank you. Okay. Yeah, this is what you want to share with GitHub.
I have lost. What did you do that cat got that secret code and then what happened?
So that's a good question. So the SSH keygen generated two different keys, the private key and the public key. They generated it in this folder. What cat does is it reads and prints the contents of the file when you just give it one argument. So I printed the private key and then I printed the public key. And I should have just printed the public key. That's okay. And what you want to do is copy this entire public key, and then go to your GitHub account. I'll just go there. So. All right, who's following along so far? Raise your hands. Who wants me to go slower? Okay. So I took the yes, so you ran the line, you ran this SSH dash keygen, and then you entered through. Then what you want to do, that generated two different files in this folder. In my case, it was home/jovian/.ssh. And then you want to read the contents of those files, the public one in particular, and tell GitHub about it. And the command I used to read them is cat. You may be familiar with other command line terms like less does something similar. And there's also nano. Oops. I forgot the slashes, but that's okay. So you want to read the contents of the file. This command here, oops, is how I read it.
For those who did it yesterday, is there a way to confirm that we have Git set up?
That's a good question.
If they ran this yesterday,
Yes, it's the fastest way.
once that you call on something, it'll confirm it, so,
Yeah, like git push or git.
yeah.
I don't know what the safest way to do that is.
Actually, if they're in, no.
I'm not sure what.
If you clone, it'll confirm, yeah.
We'll get to a step where you'll be able to confirm, but maybe try interacting with Git, and seeing if it lets you. You can maybe go ahead in the tutorial, try cloning and just maybe pushing and pulling, and make sure that that works, or just yeah. All right, so the other question was, what did we do with this public key? You can follow along in this get setup HTML. What we're going to do is we're going to open a new tab, go to our GitHub account, and go into settings and give GitHub this SSH key. So I open my GitHub account, I'm going into settings, I'm going into SSH and GPG keys. I believe.
New SSH key, right?
Oh, I see the Zoom dialog was blocking it. And then, so I Command C copied the public key here. Oops, apparently I didn't. I'll take the public key here, paste it here, give it a title. And then click add SSH key. And in my case, it's using dual factor authentication. So through this GitHub website API, I told it the public key, added an SSH key. So far, who's following along? And who wants me to slow down? Looks like they're getting help. That's great. So we can continue. All right, once we've completed all this, we're going to clone a repository. Actually, now that we've done this, let's get out of this Git setup and go back to local MD. Now that we've set up our Git. So
But in this way, but I see it in a, not the same format.
that's a great question. The question is, how come?
Ah,
The question was, yeah, the question was, how does it look? How is it formatted correctly? You need to, if your markdown file that you opened is not looking properly formatted, then go in and make sure that when you open the markdown file, you right click, you click open with, and then you click markdown preview to make sure you're previewing the rendered markdown.
so you had a file for like OE1, something like
Yes.
curriculum, yeah? So here curriculum, I go to
Kruper,
Kruper, and I go to O1.md.
and you right click that.
And right click this,
Yeah,
you mean on the name?
it's
then
a open with.
Open with markdown preview.
There you go.
Oh, these-
Don't worry, I'm sure there's other people with the same problem. All right. This next step is optional, but we're going to set Git's default editor to nano. We're doing things through the command line, and when you want to edit any file, like a text file, Git by default will use something called Vim, and then you'd have to learn all of the different shortcuts for Vim, which we're not going to do. But if you're already familiar with Vim, you can go ahead and use it. We're instead going to set the default to nano, which is still maybe a little tricky to learn if you've never seen it, but it's easier than Vim. Other options might be Notepad or Emacs. Following along in the 01 local MD, we're here in this set default editor step, and you can run this command. And then next, we're going to,
Don't do that. Oops,
yes,
just do that. But just do that and then copy them.
next we're simply double checking that everything got configured correctly. So if you've been following along like me, it's going to look something like this. Cat is showing the contents of this .git config file, which is in our home directory, and that's showing all the settings we set for Git, which is my name, email, some other settings, and that the editor is nano.
Yeah, can you just make it a little bigger? It's on.
Yes.
Hard to see the photos and stuff.
Oh, sorry. Is that better? Awesome. Yeah, sorry about that. All right, we've gone through all the setup. Now we can finally make a repository. The easiest way, and I think the normal way we make repositories today is going to, or that I would make a repository is to actually go onto GitHub's website and make it there first, and then pull that down onto our local computer and start editing it. So we're going to start on the GitHub website. There's a link here you can click called in the creating a new repository section called creating and managing repositories. And this is a GitHub webpage with a tutorial for how to create a new repository, which we'll be going through.
But sometimes it's just so quick, I do not, so you suddenly click, we just, okay, we just set up this now. And then what? It's just so quick, I didn't quite, okay,
So we set up nano,
yeah, and then.
and then we use cat to view the git config file.
setting up there, so set default editor. And then next the Git's global configuration, okay?
Yes.
Yeah, and then,
And now we're in creating a new repository with Git. Yes, and in the creating a new repository with Git section, there's this link here, creating and managing repositories, which links you to the GitHub website. And in this GitHub website is another tutorial for creating a repository on GitHub. Which I will now do. So how do I get rid of this message? So I just went to github.com and now I'm clicking new repository in the upper right. And it takes me to this web page. Raise your hand once you make it to this create a new repository web page. Right.
Sorry, when we do the cat command for Git's global configuration, what is supposed to come up? Because like a blank page comes up for me. Yeah,
So this command, when I run it, this shows up. If a blank page shows up, that probably means that there's not a git config file, which might mean that Git was not set up.
yeah, I think that that's the problem, that I don't have that file, but I did set it up, which is weird.
Okay. It could be in a different location. Yeah. If I don't know where else this file would be, but it could be in a different location.
Someone had what happened?
When they hit cat on this file, nothing shows up. So I assume the file's not there.
Yeah. Try git config -- list. That'll also tell us.
Oh, it worked. I was typing in like all of this stuff after I didn't realize it was output. So sorry.
No worries. Yeah, all of the commands I'm typing in the terminal, I'm copying and pasting from this local 01-local MD. So if I'm going too fast on the terminal, my apologies, but you can also reference this document. All right. So, sorry, one more time, raise your hands. Who's made it to this web page? All right, perfect. The asterisks indicate fields that you need to fill in. We'll give it a repository name. For this repository, we're going to create something called git-papers, in line with this idea that maybe we're version controlling papers that we're writing with colleagues. That's just the example we're using for this tutorial. You can give it a description, README files, any other standard.
/ repository name, yeah?
Yes. Yeah, so the owner is a,
And then we have, what is this repository for? So I'm having a trip problem because if it goes to step by step, I'm not understanding the rationale. That makes me feel completely lost. What is it going?
this repository is good.
Trying to do, and
Yeah, so a repository, you can think of it as a folder where the contents of the folder will be tracked for any changes to the files. So we're creating this folder on this repository on GitHub, and then we're going to pull it to our local machine, and then we'll start changing things inside this repository. And because it's all in this Git system, Git will automatically be tracking the changes. Yes.
how did we know? How did it know that we are in a system? So all these steps are so blind that I am blind here to it. So I just put this repository name. How does it know that?
How does it know?
Because it's in a GitHub and a different.
We'll in later steps we'll connect it to our local machine.
To the hub, this terminal,
Yeah, well,
these things to me, I do not know how to know that I'm doing here and there.
that's a great question. So how do these things communicate? So right now we're dealing with repositories in two different locations, one on the GitHub website and one locally on the terminal, and we'll connect them later. It doesn't know about each other right now. The reason we're doing this is because in general, the workflow is going to look like maybe multiple people are editing things locally, and then they're pushing and pulling, and that's sending their edits and pulling edits from other people to GitHub, the website. Does that make sense?
Yes, it would be nice that you explain this, because
Sorry.
then you say, because I don't know what it's for, then they ask, do you see what I mean?
Yes.
They say, okay, first of all, we do this, and now we do this, so the first, I don't know what it's. But anyway, thank you very much, yeah, sorry, I
All right.
just don't know where is it going to, yeah, thanks.
What was your question?
Why is job instead of GitHub desktop?
Sorry, what wise job instead of GitHub desktop?
GitHub desktop.
That's a great question. The question is, how is it different than GitHub desktop? It's the same as GitHub desktop. GitHub desktop is GUI, graphical user interface. And this, we're just using the terminal. In my experience, I prefer the terminal. It's a little easier to understand what's going on under the hood for me. But if you prefer GitHub desktop, you can use GitHub desktop. It's the same system. All right. Cool. So I'll be making this new repository. Me, the owner, this the name.
You think, you know what happened? So.
You help. All right.
Yeah. So I don't know how come that's gonna come to this page.
You can choose between public and private. Public means anyone can see the repository, and private means only people you share it can see the repository. And then you click this create button.
Should we make NeuroHackademy the owner or should we be the owner?
Sorry, could you repeat that question?
Should we be the owner or should NeuroHackademy be the owner?
You can make yourself the owner. And you can delete this later if you don't want to clutter your account. But GitHub will allow you to make as many public repositories as you want. It's all free. All right, so we've created this repository online on GitHub. And now going back to the tutorial, we're going to connect it back to what we were doing on Jupyter. Great question. The question was, for this instance, does it matter if it's public or private? I don't think it matters for the tutorial.
Only things that you're only, unless you pay for an account, you're only allowed to have like 6 private repositories or something. So you may not want to use a tutorial account for repositories.
Yes. All right, now we're going to connect this back to the local machine. The first thing we're worrying about is where this command line actually is. Right now, we're in this shared docs folder, which we might not want to be in. At least that's where I am. So I'm just going to type in CD and then enter. And that moves us back to this tilde, which is the home directory. And then once we're in the home directory, we can type in pwd to just verify that we are indeed in the home directory. And then we're going to clone the repository. And that's following this command here. So it's git clone and then git at github.com colon. And for me, my username is 36,000. Don't ask why. And then the name of the repository .git. So that's the reference to the website, and then you're going to be putting it on some folder locally, and we can just call that Git papers the same name as what's remote, which is the normal way I've seen people do it. All right, so I've told it to clone. And now it's trying to authenticate. It's asking me if I'm sure if I want to continue connecting. I'm going to tell it yes. And now it's added github.com to the list of known hosts, which is fine. GitHub.com is a reliable source. And the repository has cloned. If I,
Well, this whole thing,
yeah, if,
and then you can get, which is another get papers, no?
yes. So following along, it's this command in local MD, git clone, which copies from some repository that we made online down to the local.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, you can call the folder locally different than the repository remotely. In general, I think people use the same name always. I've never seen it different. Just because it can get confusing if you have multiple names running around. But now if I hit ls, which shows all of the folders and files in this home directory, we see that Git papers has been created. We can cd, which means change directory, into Git papers. Nothing's in it. We haven't put anything in it, but it's there. Yes. Kelly.
Probably in the shared docs directory. You're probably still in the shared directory.
Yeah, make sure if you type in cd and then enter, it will send you back to your home directory. All right, this may look empty, but wait. This may look empty, but there's actually a hidden file, a hidden folder. Folders that start with a dot are not automatically shown on ls. And that hidden folder is this .git folder. And this .git folder holds the configuration for this Git repository we made. If you're working in this directory, make sure to not accidentally delete this .git folder, because when we did this git clone and made this folder, you might think it's just any other folder on your computer, but this hidden .git directory is what tells GitHub about how all of this is working.
That's ls.git/.
Yes.
It says no such file or directory.
Make sure you cd into the repository first.
Into the repository.
So-
Repositories, or is it only like specific to these?
Every repository will have a .git folder, and it's a separate one, yes. Yeah, and if you make changes in it, they'll be tracked the same as changes outside of the folder.
And going there, I see a file called config. When I say cat config, there's no such file or directory. No.
You shouldn't really worry about what's in the .git directory.
Oh.
It's sort of like, it's secret.
The question is, the question is, you do cat config inside this folder and there's some problem. Right now, we're just showing you this folder exists, and to be aware of it, we're not going into the details. The question is, can I briefly explain what cloning is? The reason it's called cloning, right now we've created this repository on GitHub that's empty, but you can imagine walking to a repository that already exists. And then when you do git clone, it copies the entire repository down to your local host. So that's why it's called cloning. And then you can start making changes to it up to date. It's a great question. Yeah, you can do this in the other direction by using this command called git init to set up a Git folder locally and then pushing it up to GitHub. But I find it's easier to do it on GitHub first. All right, who's following along so far? All right. Awesome. We're going to start making changes and actually seeing how this version control works. So we're going to start by making a file. For this example, we're going to call it journal.md. It can be any file you want to make. It could be journal.txt if you're unfamiliar with Markdown. So let's do this. Nano is the text editor that we prefer. So I've used Nano to open a file in this GitHub folder. Oh, is the yellow hard to read? Oh no. That's why everyone's struggling. I was like, okay, let's see. Is that better? Okay. I wonder, do you have any recommendations for the best text editor to use on here?
No, it is Nano. I didn't realize Nano was gonna have a yellow foreground. Try just, it's just here. Try. Why don't you just use Vim and they can use Nano?
Okay, great. I'm going to be, hopefully this doesn't get too confusing. I'm going to be using Vim to edit files. Yes, yes. If you already know Vim or VI, you can go, I prefer it also, but it's just a preference. Yeah. Yes. Okay, great. So we've made a new file in the repository and we've given it some example text, whatever you want it to be. And then save that. And if you type in git status is almost like a reflexive thing you can type in at any time. It doesn't change the repository. It just shows you what's going on in the repository. The first line says on branch main. We haven't talked about branches yet, so don't worry about that. We haven't made any commits yet, but we've added this file journal.md. When you add a new file to this repository, by default, it's not going to be tracked by the version control system. So you have to manually type in this git add and then the name of the file. And then you can type in git status and you see it's staged to be committed.
When I do the Nano thing, I have like just like a blank screen with like options of like help, write out, where is
That's correct. That is normal. So the question is, when I do the Nano thing, I see a blank screen. Right now, what we're doing is we're creating an example file to show how the version control works. So we're just making up a new file. It's going to be empty initially. So if you're following remotely, maybe you can see Nano better. We'll call it journal2.md. And so just types anything in your file. And then with Nano to exit and save, I believe you hold Control and hit X. Save modified buffer, hold Shift and hit Y. And then it's telling you the file name to write and you hit Enter. So that's one way of saving the file. If you have your own preference for a text editor, you can use that text editor. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you. I really just wasn't sure how to get out of there. That was helpful.
That's great. There's some jokes about these text editors. Like the best way to make a random number generator is to drop someone in Vim without telling them how Vim works and tell them to exit Vim. So they can be pretty confusing at first. All right. So we've Git added this file. Git add serves two purposes. Firstly, to tell Git that a given file should be tracked. And secondly, to put it into a staging area. It's also known as an index or a cache. The next thing you do is going to be git commit. And that's when you actually take all these changes that you've been doing and then put them into a commit. And all of those changes are going to be organized together into a commit for any future version control. So git status. We have our journal MD as a new file. I'm going to remove this journal too, so that I'm the same as you guys. And then I'm typing in git commit. And because we set our default editor to Nano, Nano's popped up. This can also be Vim, and it's asking you to write a commit message. I don't know how to use Nano. Type? Okay. First commit. Awesome. All right, so I gave it a commit message. Normally this might be something, I called it first commit, but normally this might be something like John's revisions to the paper or If you're writing in a software repository, it could be added this new function, added this new method. It just describes the changes you've made, because all of the changes you made are going to be organized into this commit.
So you just did git commit and type return,
Yes.
and then it give me nano. But I don't have to do that. I could just git commit something.
Yeah, so another way you can do it is git commit -m, and then you type in your commit message in quotes. This is a little more convenient than what you'd normally do. But just be aware if you don't type,
Commit.
yeah, -m standing for message.
And then I see.
All right, then you can type in git status. And see that all of our changes have been committed, so everything's back to normal. Here.
Or because I added, whatever I add is counted. Or if I had added 3 buttons. No. Changes one. Oh,
Go ahead.
okay, so whatever you add, must be all of them.
All right, that's a great question. The question was, why do you use git commit? What's it for? Let me pull up an example repository and try to show you how this works in practice. This is a little abstract right now. So this is an example repository that I work on quite frequently. And you can see we've had 4,000 and some commits. And here they're organized. If you click on a random commit, this is the purpose of Git. You can see a commit is an organized group of changes. So in this commit, which I clicked on, is sometime in the history of my repository. So this might not be what the code looks like now, but these are the things I changed at that moment in time. They're all organized together from different files. And so in red would be like maybe what the function used to look like. And then I just, in this case, changed the name. And so that's the change that shows up in green. So commit organizes changes that happen together, and you give it a message. Yes.
What's happening in this report?
E-
What they have a look.
Exactly. So the question was, this is on my GitHub account, and you can look at this repository and see what's happening. Yeah, any repository you're interested in, you can go to the repository and hit this commit button in this corner here and see the whole history of all the changes of the repository. So it's just a really convenient way of keeping track of changes. All right, sorry if that was a lot of information. Does that answer the question? Right.
The way you see things.
All right, how many people followed along to this point? Raise your hand. Sorry. Okay, right now in the local.md, we are in the middle of this section, commit changes. I've written one commit. It looks like we're going to make, we're right here. We're about to do this line. Cool. All right, that's a great question. The question is, where can I see the commit in our repository? I can't see it on the GitHub. So I'll answer that 2 ways. For one, on the actual GitHub website, we haven't actually pushed it yet, which means we've made these changes locally and we haven't updated them remotely. 2, you can see what changes you made locally with this command git log. You type in git log and it's printed my first commit history. And I realized I misspelled commit, but that's great. So this would, if you've made many commits, this would be a longer history.
I this repository. But it still tells me quick setup if you've done this kind of thing before.
We haven't pushed the changes that we made locally to the repository remotely yet.
We
Yeah, so there's 3 steps when you make a change before it actually gets updated remotely. You're gonna git add, git commit, and then we haven't done this yet, but you'll get push. All right, do you have a question?
Okay, so I don't see journal.md. I just see nothing to commit.
Have you already done git commit? Oh,
Sure.
Table reference these do not have machines. That's exactly the same thing I do.
Yeah, something should have to.
Can we make comment one more time?
uh,
Everything was under
Yeah,
comment.
it wants you to go through the commit.
Okay.
all the time, yeah.
I think that's what the tutorial does next. So let's do that. Maybe I stopped at the wrong time. So that was one commit. We're going to make a new folder and a new file in that folder and then commit that again. Just for practice. So to make a new folder, you can do mkdir. And in this case, it wants us to call it common. Well, just for example purposes, we're gonna. Yeah, the question is, oh, we're making a new folder. This is for the purposes of example. It's not a new repository. The repository can keep track of the files in it, files within folders within it, folders within anything. It keeps track of subfolders. So we made this make dir common, and now I will use vim and then make a folder inside of common, which we are going to call references.txt. Following along with our example of making a journal paper, I'll fill this in with an example reference. All right, and then if you do git status, you should now see untracked files common. I'll wait a bit. This is a great question. How do you exit the reference file? Did you use Vim or Nano? Okay, the way you exit with Vim is you're going to hit escape and then colon and then X and then hit enter.
Yeah.
This is why we set Nano to the default. Yeah, here, I'll go through it again. I like Vim. It's just a little. As a brief aside for Vim, you can be in 2 modes. You can be editing the text. You hit I to go into this insert mode and you can start editing, and then you hit escape to get out of it. You can see in the bottom left-hand corner, this insert mode is getting turned on and off. And then when you're not in insert mode, you can start doing commands by hitting colon. I hit colon and now I'm typing down in the bottom, typing whatever I want. And in this case, I want to type X and hit enter, which means close and save. Yes. All right. All right, so we've got git status and we've got common is untracked. Raise your hand if you're at this point.
I cannot get out the fixed point.
You would not really have time that.
Very common. Trust me, once you get over the initial learning hump, it actually is a lot easier than doing things manually. But at first it's tricky. All right, anyone else want me to wait, or is everyone else at the stage? Raise your
So
hand
is
if you want me to wait.
Is
Huh?
Vim something that we need to do? It's not on the local markdown, is it?
Vim is not something you need to do. The question is Vim something we need to do? Vim is not mentioned in the local markdown. It's not something you need to learn. I was using Vim because the colors from Vim show up a little better for the audience in this room. I should have configured my Nano ahead of time. Yeah.
Export term equal BT1. capital terms, right?
VT 100, capital VT or?
Just like that, that's fine. And now your nano will be done.
Yeah, test.text. Hey, great. All right, thank you. Not saving that. All right. Let's go through the committing process again. So we made a new file. We put it in this folder called common. If you do git status, you can see it in untracked files. So then we're going to do git add common. And then I'll do git status again and see now it's staged. It's inside changes to be committed in green. Then we'll do the second step, git commit. This time I'm going to use -m and give the message here, which is I'll say add references file. So then this change is going to be organized in this commit, and anyone who wants to know what happened inside this commit can look at this message. I hit enter and it shows me the change.
So let's say you have added 2 files. And then before you commit, you realize actually you don't want one of the files to commit. You have to remove it from your net.
Yes. The question is, let's say you added 2 files and you realize that before you want to commit, you want to remove one of the files. There is a command to do that. Is it git rm? No, it's different.
I'll find it for you.
Okay, thank you.
No, this is not something that I do very well, but it is, yeah, I think it's git reset.
It git reset sounds right. Yeah, I always look it up when I have to do it.
You think they're all the same, why not just make one command and do just 2? There's 3 different commands. Obviously, it's there for people to do more than just.
Yeah, so the question is there's 3 different commands here, get, add, git commit, and we'll eventually do git push, which will change what's on this repo remotely. Why are they different commands? I think pushing will get complicated because if you have multiple people doing changes separately, and then you multiple people are doing changes separately and you're pushing to the same repository, there can be conflicts. So I understand why that's separate. For git add and git commit being separate, I've never fully thought it was. Del, I want to step in here.
Yeah, so a lot of times, when you're working on big pieces of code and big software repositories, you go to some file and you make a change to like your data structure, but because you changed it there, you need to go to some other file and change the way that it handles things, because now instead of coordinate.x, you've got coordinate.export or whatever, and you need to change that in multiple files. So if you checked in one of those changes, then in between commits, your repository would be broken, like your code wouldn't work because you've changed it here, but not over here. So the idea is you don't ever want someone to accidentally download a broken repository. So we put all the changes that go together in one commit, and then they can either get the repository before the commit or after the commit, but not in the middle of it. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I think that's the reason it exists. 90% of the time, that's extra pain, but that's why it's there.
Yeah.
But you haven't pushed it, so it doesn't matter.
So pushing is just about synchronizing with the website. Yeah. So once you push it, that's
I kind of think modify. Yeah, it's showing me the just in the stuff. I modify the journal file.
Okay.
So how can I? Do I need to? I think that's what you say.
reset.
I do not anything.
Oh, yeah, if you committed with both files, if you didn't want to modify the journal file, if you haven't added it, it won't commit. So it only commits with you add, and other changes just stay in.
All right. Any more questions regarding add and commit? All right. That's it for 0.1. Let's now move on to 0.2 history.md. What time is it? 2:30. Yeah, that's good. All right, so before I alluded to push, before we do push, I want to talk a little bit about git diff. We're going to use nano and modify an existing file, journal.md, and make any modification you want. I'll just say add introduction, and then Control X and Y to save file name to write journal.md. I'm hitting enter. And now if I hit get status, you can see that I've modified journal.md. But maybe you're looking at this and like, well, what did I modify? I forget. You can use git diff and then the name of the file, that's diff, and then it'll show you the parts that are changed. So this part of the file is printed in black text because I haven't changed it, and then it's got these little plus signs to indicate that I added a space and then the add introduction text. So it's a way of quickly checking what you've changed in a file. Let's see. Additionally, we've talked about this a little bit before, but you can do git log and see the history of your commits. In this case, we have the first commit and added the reference file. And what else is this talking about? This is probably not needed. This is getting a little complicated. Let me look at this one. Okay. So that's git log and git diff. I think that the history.md is a little complicated. I kind of want to get to pushing. So let's skip to 04-remote md. In here, we've already done a lot of this stuff, creating a new repository, adding an SSH key. We're ahead of the game. And finally, we can get to pushing, which will make it so that our repository is actually updated. All right. So to take these commits that we made locally and change them online, we're going to do a git push command. Now, when you're doing git push, for now, this will seem overly complicated, but you want to specify what changes locally you want to send, and then where on the remote end you want to put them. So git push, if we do git remote -v, you'll see what repositories this is associated with. So I set it up to be associated with this github.com 36000 gitpapers.git. You can have multiple different repositories with maybe multiple different changes, maybe multiple different versions of the software, all connected to the same GitHub repository. But this is the origin, so we want to push to origin. And we're going to say main, which is the current branch we're on. I haven't talked about branches yet, but let's just do this. And then you push enter. Here it says enumerating the different objects that we changed, compressing them, writing them, and sending them to GitHub. And then if I go back to my GitHub and hit refresh, then finally all of that initial stuff went away, and you can see the different files that we modified locally. So I can now go into journal.md online and see my example text, and then go into common references and see example reference. Yes.
When you did that, git push for main, but in the actual tutorial, it's git push -u origin main. What's that flag, that -u, what does that mean?
That's a great question. Is that the user?
No, this is, okay. Some Git tutorials will do it the way that John did, which is the way almost everyone does it, where you make a repository on GitHub and then you clone it. Other Git tutorials will have you create a directory and initialize a Git repository there, And then instead of cloning it down from GitHub, we push it up to GitHub. But in that case, GitHub doesn't already know about the repository, so you have to give it a special argument that says, hey, we need to make this branch of this repository that I push. And that's what the U origin master is about for. Since we cloned from GitHub, it already knew it, and so that was.
Great question.
Or do you given an error says fail to push somewhere specific. Say something about my non-privacy restrictions.
Okay. Maybe Noah can help you. It looks like multiple people are getting the same error. So this is an error regarding privacy problems. If the setup didn't happen correctly, you would show up, an error would show up here because this is the first time we're taking changes locally and putting them on your account online. So for people online, try to go make sure you did all of the setup sets correctly. And for people here, maybe someone can help you. All right, raise your hand if you're able to make changes locally and push them to your repository remotely. All right, raise your hand if you want me to slow down and stay on this section. All right, I'm going to start talking about branching. So this is section number 3, 0-03-branching.md, markdown preview. So far we've done add, commit, push. These are the basics for GitHub. These are maybe the most important things. Branching gets into something a little more complicated where you maybe want to make a series of changes, a series of commits, and then merge them all at once. So maybe you're adding something to a repository, someone else is also working on something and wants to ultimately add it. And so you don't want to end up pushing to the same repository. You're going to be pushing to a different branch, which you will then merge. And you might have seen some of this showing up here and there. We've been talking about on branch main has showed up for us when you hit get status because of the way we configured it. And there's usually a main branch, which is, as you can tell, the main branch. So the question is, so this tutorial shows master here, not main. Master is the default. We changed the defaults to have the main branch be called main instead of master. Different people have different preferences. Master, like as a word, has like, I guess, a bad connotation to an extent. So it's just more, main is just an easier way of saying it than master. So we prefer main. So we have our paper in this local repository. Let's try branching. To make a branch, we're going to use this command git checkout -b. And I will call, and then you need to give the branch a name. Here I'll call it paper W John. You can follow along with this again in 03-branching MD. Down here, it's the first command. This is going to create a new branch. And in this new branch, I'll be able to start making changes that don't affect the main branch. So I can maybe test a new feature and make changes here, and then ultimately merge it in with the main branch. While at the same time, a colleague could be making changes elsewhere, or maybe there's 2 different things I want to add that I'm working on at the same time for some reason.
My directory, there's no other colleague. So what do you mean? There's a colleague?
This is for example purposes. So
But I thought it was the repository that is calling this. Not,
that's a great question. So the question is, I thought the colleague will be interacting with the repository. This is all local, so why do I need different branches? That's a great question. In practice, I'll use different branches if I'm working on two different parts of the code at the same time. Maybe my PI wants me to add a feature, so that I'm working on that, but I haven't thoroughly bug tested that. I'm not sure it works. So I've got those changes somewhere. And then I've also got a friend who found, or like someone I'm working with found a bug that I want to go quickly fix, but I want to go quickly fix it on the version of the code I know is working, the main branch. So you want to have two different versions of the same software at the same time, even locally.
And so rather than say git new branch, you can git checkout. Checkout, you mean check out your main branch, you want to get a new branch.
That's a great question. So why is it the name called Git Checkout instead of like Git New Branch? Git Checkout, without the dash B, is the normal way you switch between branches. So if you've already got an existing branch called paper with John, you can do Git Checkout to move to that. If you want to go back to main, we'll do Git Checkout main. You add the dash B, and that's what creates a new branch.
Dash means a new branch.
Yes.
New stands for new,
In this case, yeah.
yeah. So these are not very obvious names, yeah, so it's very interesting.
Yeah, the question,
B means. Interesting, a new branch.
yes.
Version 2, I'm gonna call it.
Sounds good. So in this new branch, we're going to make another change. It's the same way you'd make a change in the old branch. I'm going to edit journal.md, add the change, and then commit it.
And go to the same journal.md in this new branch.
Yeah. For example purposes, we're editing the same thing.
This to the new branch.
I'll make some change.
Version 2.
Okay, so I made some change in my new branch. I've done add, I've done commit, and now I am doing this git log command. Raise your hand if you're in a new branch and have made the commit. All right, great. This git log command is telling you, since you're still in this branch, if you haven't done git checkout main yet, if you're still in this branch, this git log is telling you your commit history. And you can see for this first commit, the most recent commit you've made, it's saying it's in your branch paper with John. And then for this other commit in the past, it's telling you this is actually where your main branch is at. Still. And if you want to go back to your main branch, you can click git checkout main. Switch the branch back to main. And if you then view the file you changed, it should be as it was before you made the new branch. And then you can, if you wanted to, you could go back and check out that old branch. Paper with John. So you can switch back and forth between these branches using git checkout, and each branch has a different version of the file. All right, I'm seeing a few confused faces. Raise your hand if you have any questions.
Yep, checking that. To change to the main branch now.
Yes. So the question was check out masters change to the main branch. To clarify, when we set up our GitHub, we set it to use the term main. I need to update this file It's because it's still using the term master. Where it's using master, we're using the word main. But in the real world, the repositories, some repositories still use master, some repositories have switched to main. So you'll see both, they mean the same thing. You cannot use them interchangeably, yeah. You should be using main.
So I no longer need minus B because it's no longer a new creation.
Exactly. So the question is, you no longer need minus B because it's no longer new. That's correct. After we've created this new branch, you can now switch back and forth between them without using the minus B argument. Huh? No, I haven't done the merge yet. All right. All right, now we're going to merge the two branches together. I will do get checkout main to make sure I'm back on main. I'm going to do get checkout status and make sure I don't have any extra files running around that I haven't committed. And then I'm going to do get merge and then the name of the branch and hit enter. And it will automatically merge in the changes that I've made in that branch to the changes that I made here.
Get
Yes,
what's the
that's the name of the branch that I chose.
name of the new branch?
Yes. Yeah,
Because now you are in main, then you say merge main with paper with John.
yes.
I see, gotcha.
For example, working on a plan that has multiple branches, is the only way to merge, like if you wanna merge to a different branch, not necessarily just the main branch, is that also possible?
Great question. So the question is, if you're working on a project that has multiple branches, can you merge to the different branch instead of merging back to main? It is possible. The way this command works is right now I've get checked out, so I'm back in the main branch, and then I'm telling it the other branch that I want to like merge into. So if you wanted to, if you have multiple branches, just make sure you know what branch you're in.
So when you do the git status, it only shows you the main branch. But before I merge the main branch with the other branch, is there another command for me to see what is the currently two branch differ?
This is a great question. So when you said when I do get status, I see the status of the main branch. This is important. If you get checkout and go to your other branch and then do get status, you're then seeing the status of the other branch. I didn't.
Command that can see both branches so that before you merge, you see.
So now this is important functionality. So the question was, is there a way to see differences between the two branches so you know what they are before you merge? I don't know if I've written a tutorial for that, but there is a way to do that on the GitHub UI. Let's see if we can trigger that. That's how I know how to do it. There must be another way. Let's see if there's like git diff.
A command where it shows you the both branches. One is this and one is that. Can I use that? What is that command?
Git diff, diff.
Get diff.
I've already merged them.
Main and the. See that will work.
Have you merged them yet?
Not yet.
And does it show differences?
So when you get diff, it tells you.
All right. Raise your hand if you have successfully merged the two branches together. All right, great. That's a great question. The question was, can you see a list of the different branches you have? I believe it's git branch -v. Yes. -v for view.
That's a very useful command.
Yeah, and if you want to compare two branches, I showed you this git diff command. There's also this MD down here, which I don't think we'll get to today, which is 06-pool requests. And this should explain, oftentimes instead of merging things locally, you go off into your different branch and you start making changes. And then you push that different branch up to GitHub. And then you and your collaborators can look at the differences between the two branches online before deciding to merge them online. And then you get to use the GitHub UI and it will highlight differences like it does with the commits with like the green and red plus and minus signs. Like here, it's showing this line was added. This is a bad example. So you can go through this pull request MD file if you want and see how that works. But yeah, I think we only have 13 more minutes, so I'd like to spend the rest of the time answering questions. If that makes sense to people. Any questions regarding Git in general?
And you like push another file with the same name, does it override?
That's a great question. If you have a file on GitHub and you push another file with the same name, does it overwrite? The answer is no. If that was that file added by someone else on like a different commit, do you think? Or in general, if the reason when you push or pull from GitHub, it's going to be in the form of these commits, which are these groups of files that have changed. And if someone else has maybe pushed a commit to GitHub, so there's a new file there that you don't have, and then you're working in the same branch, say, and you try to push, one of two things will happen. One, you've made changes entirely in different lines or in different files, in which case it can auto merge. When we did the git merge command, that was actually automatic. Or two, that you've made different changes to the same line, in which case there's a conflict and it will drop into either Nano or Vim and force you to resolve the conflict before you can merge, or it'll say the merge failed and you go into the files manually and tell it which one to do. It's a great question.
So I merged. How can I tell I have just merged? When I do git branch -v again, I still see two branches.
That's a
That
great,
doesn't really tell me that they already merged or not.
those are great questions. After I've already merged, I can still see two branches. When I do git branch -v, how can I tell if I've merged? Yeah, when you merge two branches, the other branches still exist. Even though most of the time you're not going to keep using them. But if you want to keep using them, you can. One way you can tell is to do git log, and git log will tell you where your main branch is. So when I did git log before I merged, this green main text was down at the other commit. And now that I've done it after the merge, the green main text is here. And you can see this red origin main. I believe that's because the repository remotely is still on that old commit because I haven't pushed it yet. So if I get pushed,
Git log is telling that you have already merged.
it won't tell you you can tell you merged because that commit was from another merge. And if you do it through the pull request system, you'll see the merge show up as its own commit, which is a little more convenient. So we don't have time. It's difficult to tell from git log, but you can see that your branches are in the same commit. So that means that they've been merged. In the green text, sorry if it's too hard to see, but I've got my two branches, which are main and paper with John, and they're on the same commit level. Yeah.
Because I always get the latest commit on the top. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah, that's a great question. So the latest commit is always on top. And if I do git push origin main, it should push that merge. And then I can do git log, and origin main is also now at that same commit, which means that the remote repository is also updated. All right.
Oh, it's not the origin main, there's a sound as an origin main, what that make?
Origin main used to be at this commit here, the second commit, and then I did git push, which updates the remote repository, and now origin main is here. Origin is the name of the remote repository to us. You can see that with git remote -v. I think you had a question.
Git, specifically like handle very large files and stuff. So what happens if, this has happened to me before, where I've like, staged a file and committed a file and realized, oh, I need to uncommit or unstage this change because I've done something that like really shouldn't be just pushed up to the repository.
Yep.
How do you undo something?
All right, so the question is, what if I add something or commit something that I then want to remove? That's a great question. For git add, I forget the command. I think it's git reset, but you should look it up. If you've already committed it, it's a little more serious. And what you can do is use the git reset command. So you can see from the log, we have our history of commits. Let's say I want to go back to this commit here. I'm going to do git reset and the name of the commit. Now, there's one of two ways you can run git reset. One is with -H for hard, and the other is by default. When I do this by default, none of the files actually change. If I cat journal.md, the changes are still there. What's changed is that I no longer have that commit in my history and the file is unstaged. So that's the way you reset a commit, is by doing git reset, and then you tell it what commit in the past you want it to reset to. If you do git reset hard, then it will undo the commit and undo all of the changes and just totally forget about them. So only git reset hard if you want to completely delete your changes. Yeah.
So when you say git reset, you give a long string. What is that long string?
Yeah, so when you do git reset, you're giving this long string, which is the ID associated with the commit. That's a great question. I forgot to talk about that. Every commit has this.
Just this long string.
Yes,
Reset in this long string, you said it's that commit you want to reverse.
yes.
Go back to that.
Yeah, go back to, yeah. Yeah, you tell it the commit that you're going back to, not the one you want to undo. So I gave it when I yeah, I gave it this middle one to tell it to go back to that one. It's as if from Git's perspective, you're still in this commit, but it doesn't actually change any of the files. So before I did this, git status was showing nothing because all of our changes were committed. Then when I git reset to this commit and do git status, it's as if I never did the commit in the first place. And so this file's changes are back unstaged, and you'd have to do git add and git commit again if you wanted to. All right.
Is there like an asking check for that repository? Somebody that look after all repositories and accept them, or how does it work?
This is a great question. So the question was, if you have multiple people working potentially on the same branch and they're pushing and pulling, is there someone who looks at these and accepts them? This is somewhat gone over in this 06 pull requests. In general, whenever I'm making changes to any large code base that I'm working on, I'm almost always working in a separate branch. If you're doing a project that maybe you're really the only person contributing to, you might work in main a lot, but I'm usually, even for small changes, I'm going to a different branch, making the small changes, and then I push them to the repository, and I'll show you what a pull request looks like in this repository. Let's find. So this looks kind of maybe a little foreign, but what it's showing is a pull request, which is a request to merge branches that happens online. The main branch here is you're requesting to merge this branch that Ariel made called DTI's lower triangle. And then you can see all the changes. And before he made all these changes, so before we would merge into the repository, I would look over these changes and see if they make sense. And I don't have an example off the top of my head, but if changes have been made to main that aren't on this branch and they conflict, it won't let you merge. You have to make sure that everything it's like no conflicts with base branch means you're allowed to merge. If you change the same line, this would say that you're not allowed to merge and show you what line was causing the problem. Yes. 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 Yeah, not only can you both merge, but you can use git reset to delete other people's changes if you're not careful. Yes. Yes. Yeah, so the question is there's ways to protect the repository so only certain people can accept the pulls. Yeah, so for this, if any of you wanted to make a change, you could open a pull request, but you wouldn't be able to actually merge them on this repository between me and Ariel. The other thing you would normally do, which we didn't have time to get into today, it's another thing like branching, but you can hit this fork button and then you'll clone the repository to your own account. So if you have if there's a repository that someone's running that you don't have access to, you can fork it to your own account and make changes on your own account, which is you have access to, and then use the pull request to request that those changes be made back to the main repository.
So I just want to add something about that. Git is like, as you're probably realizing, Git is a very complicated piece of software that's made so that companies like Google can manage their code bases, which are enormous. So that's part of why they have all these features, and it feels like there's a lot of stuff they don't necessarily need. But one of the things Git is really good at is not deleting things. So if you accidentally like overwrite something in your GitHub repository, there is absolutely a way to go just rewind time and get the old version back. And it's actually quite difficult to delete data in a Git repository, even if you think you overwritten it or deleted it, it's all there. So as you're using Git, don't be too afraid. Like you're definitely not going to screw up my repository in your Git command. And you're probably not going to be able to screw up your own repository. Worst case, you're going to have to come to like me or John or Ariel or someone and say, hey, help me get the files back. But you're almost certainly not going to lose it. So you can be kind of fearless with it.
I'll repeat that a little bit for the people online and give some examples. So he's saying there's a lot of different commands in Git because it's a complicated system that's even used by large companies. But don't be too scared to use it. The commands we went over today, git add, git commit, git merge, they're all reversible. You may get your Git into a position where you have no idea what's going on, but someone who knows in your lab will probably be able to help you out of it, and you wouldn't have deleted anything. There's really only a few commands that will permanently delete things. And only where you have permissions. Those commands would be like git reset -- hard, which I talked about earlier. There's another command, git rebase, which can permanently delete things. But all of the commands we went over today are enough to use Git. Like these aren't even always necessary, and so git add, git commit, git merge, they'll never delete anything permanently.
Is it possible to save the code from terminal like as notes?
So the question is it possible to save the code from terminal as it is? There's probably a way.
Save the code. What? I'm not sure what you mean. Like the history?
So you mean save like the terminal history and the outputs?
Like save like what we just did. So like if I wanted to use this next week, I could remember.
Oh, it's saved.
So the question is, we want to save what we just did so you can go over it next week. All of these MD files are available online on GitHub. And pretty much all of the commands I've done are from these files. I skipped over a lot of the text and was just doing the commands. In terms of the actual terminal history, which could also be interesting.
You can type history for one, but I think the question is making sure you don't have to type like the SSH keygen and all that stuff again, because that's already been done once, and you don't actually have to do those configuration items again.
Yeah, so to clarify, for the initial commands we did with the SSH keygen and telling it the username and password, you do that once per machine. So you can do that locally on your own machine once, and then you don't have to worry about it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
All right, any more questions? All right, we're at time. Thank you.
It's a virtual machine, not